Hi, I'm Marjorie. My sister forged my name, built a house on my land, and now the IRS says I owe $17,000. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing they planned it, quietly, methodically, while I was too broken to stop them. How does family turn on you like that? And still smile? Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you? What's the hardest thing you've ever had to prove you didn't deserve? And just curious, what time is it where you are? And what city or state are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'd really love to know. The envelope wasn't thick, but it carried weight. It was one of those mornings where the silence hummed too loud. I'd just made tea, careful with the kettle, so I wouldn't jolt the brace on my back. The mailbox creaked like it hadn't been touched in weeks. I grabbed the stack, mostly ads, except one letter. Government seal, IRS. My stomach didn't clench right away. It sat heavy instead, waiting. I opened it standing by the sink. Read it once, then again. My breath didn't catch until the third line. Due to newly assessed structural improvements to the property, your tax liability has increased to $17,264. I sat down, hard. Structural improvements? I hadn't lifted a hammer since the accident. My spine still screamed if I twisted too fast. I stared at the page. Effective immediately, it said. A friendly reminder at the bottom. Non-payment may result in property reassessment or lien placement. That's when my fingers started shaking. I set the letter down. The air felt tighter. My mind dug into the last 6 months like clawing through sand. I remembered voices in the hospital, half-formed words drifting through morphine fog. My mother's hand smoothing my hair, Delilah whispering something about helping out. None of it had structure, just scraps of memory. I opened the cabinet where I kept my house files. The drawer stuck, too full. I yanked it, papers spilled. I started flipping through folders until I found the one labeled permits. Nothing recent, no submission under my name. That should have brought relief. It didn't. A ping on my phone made me flinch. A neighbor. Mrs. Donahue, 3 houses down. Glad you're getting that backyard finally done. Looks great so far. What? I opened her message. Attached was a blurry image of men in orange vests standing near the back fence. One waved at the camera. Behind them, a concrete mixer. I didn't blink. I didn't move. I zoomed in. A permit taped to a post. My name printed bold and black beneath the county seal. I pulled up my email, searched construction. And there it was, forwarded from a contractor I didn't hire. Subject line, build approved, Lane property. I opened the PDF, my name at the bottom, my signature, sort of. But the tail on the G was wrong. Too short. And the curve of the M dipped where mine didn't. It was close. Close enough to fool someone who didn't know me. But I knew it wasn't mine. A strange calm settled over me. The kind that comes just before something snaps. I stood and walked to the window. There, beyond the sun-bleached patio chairs, was the mixer. It wasn't running yet, but it would. They were setting up, pouring soon, on my land with my name. The tea on the counter had gone cold. My jaw clenched, my voice low, barely above a breath. What the hell did you do, Delilah? I reached for my phone and scrolled to Gideon's number. The folder still smelled like alcohol swabs and hospital plastic. I hadn't touched it since coming home. It stayed buried beneath tax documents and old medical bills. Quiet, like everything else I'd tried to forget. But today, the house didn't feel quiet. It felt accused. Like even the walls were watching me, waiting for me to admit I had missed something. I set the folder on the kitchen table and flipped it open. Discharge paperwork, prescription logs, then the intake form. I paused. My name, signature, date, 2 days after the accident. But I couldn't even sit up straight at that point, let alone sign legal documents. The signature looked familiar. Not mine. Not exactly, but eerily similar to the one on the building permit. I pulled both out, laid them side by side. Same tail on the G, same too-wide R. Someone had copied my hospital signature, the one I'd scrawled drugged and dazed, and used it as their blueprint. The realization cracked through me like bone-meeting ice. It wasn't just Delilah. It had started with her, sure. but someone else had enabled it. My mother had full access to my records during my stay. She'd said it so casually at the time. "We're taking care of everything, honey. Just rest." Now I saw the weight behind her words. They weren't comfort. They were cover. My phone buzzed. "Didn't know you opened a wellness brand," the message read. "Saw this online. Looks great." No sender name. Just a number I hadn't saved. I clicked the link. My thumb hesitated just slightly before tapping. Instagram, @Delilah Wellness Official. Her profile, glowing in sunset tones and curated fonts. The latest post? A ribbon-cutting photo. She wore a peach dress, all teeth and PR polish. And behind her, a massive banner. "In partnership with Marjorie Lane, retired nurse." My name, in cursive. The caption, "So proud to honor my sister's legacy by building something that blends healing and hope. #sisterhood, #wellness family, #legacy continues." Hundreds of likes, a dozen comments. "Marjorie, you're such an inspiration. So powerful to see sisters support each other. Thank you both for sharing your journey." I dropped the phone. She wasn't just using my name, she was rewriting the story. A story I wasn't in. A legacy I hadn't approved. A business I didn't know existed. I pulled up LinkedIn, searched my name. The headline under Delilah Knox read, "Co-founder of Delilah Wellness Group, advisor, Marjorie Lane, RN, Ret." She hadn't just borrowed me, she'd branded me. I closed the screen and stared out the window. The trees outside swayed gently, but everything inside me was still. "You used my broken body to build your dream," I whispered. "And now you want the world to think I blessed it." I reached into the cabinet again and pulled out the forged permit, placed it next to the hospital signature, the looped G, the stretched ER. I smoothed the edge of the paper with my thumb and whispered, cold and steady, "You want my name?" I stood. My spine protested, but I didn't sit down again. "Then you're going to hear me say it. In court." I woke up to the soft ping of my phone. At first, I thought it was another email from Gideon. I hoped it was. I needed something clean, something that made sense. Instead, it was a screenshot, sent by a nurse I hadn't worked with in years. "Didn't know you launched a brand. Looks beautiful. Congrats." My pulse stalled. The screenshot showed an Instagram post from @Delilah Wellness Official. There she was, Delilah, cutting a ribbon with a polished smile and a hand resting lightly on a banner that read, "In partnership with Marjorie Lane, retired nurse," underneath. "So proud to honor my sister's wisdom and healing legacy. Together we built this from the ground up. #healing runs deep, #wellness by sisters, #legacy." The comments were worse. "You're both incredible. Marjorie, such a beacon. I knew it. That's the energy I felt in the space." They believed her. They believed all of it. I clicked her profile. She'd pinned the post. My name was in the bio, listed as co-founder, healer, guide. I tried to comment. "This is unauthorized. I'm not..." Before I could finish, someone replied, "Girl, don't be modest. We all saw the photos." I shut the app, stood there in my robe in a kitchen that suddenly didn't feel like mine. Downstairs, a door creaked. I paused. My breath caught. Voices. I moved quietly to the hallway and leaned over the railing. Clay, standing in the dining room with 3 strangers. "And this is the original woodwork," he said. "Still intact from the original 1940s design. Really gives it character." One of the women pointed to a beam. "Is this part of the upgrade?" He chuckled. "Technically, it's still the main house, but there's room for flexibility." I descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. The floor didn't creak this time. Clay turned, grinned. "Morning. I was just giving a quick peek. Some potential investors." "Into what?" "Our future." I looked at the guests. They weren't looking at me. They were surveying my walls. "Who gave you permission to walk them through my home?" Clay blinked. "Delilah said you were fine with it. Said it might help with taxes if we... This showing is over." My voice cut the room like a blade. They hesitated. "Now," I added. One of the women muttered, "This wasn't in the listing." I turned to her. "There was no listing." They left. No one apologized. Clay, of course, lingered at the door long enough to smirk. "Sorry for the drama." I didn't respond. When the door clicked shut behind them, I locked it. Every bolt. I walked to my bedroom, opened the closet, and reached up for the metal safe box that had lived on the top shelf for over a decade. Inside, beneath birth certificates and insurance policies, was the deed. Yellowed, stamped, clear. I laid my hand flat across it. This house had my father's breath in the beams, his sweat in the foundation, and his laughter once echoing through the halls. They wanted to sell it like a feature. They wanted to sell me like a legacy I hadn't agreed to leave. I whispered, "You'll take it over my dead body." The man wore a navy windbreaker and walked like he had every right to measure the property. I recognized the logo stitched over his left chest pocket. Logan County Tax Authority. Not a buyer. Not someone Delilah sweet-talked into a wellness sponsorship. This man had badges, tape, and authority. He stepped around the back corner, glanced up at the roofline, and scribbled something on a clipboard. I didn't announce myself. I just watched from the kitchen window as he crouched by the concrete foundation, the same foundation I never authorized. He turned his head and spotted me through the glass. No wave, just a nod. "Just verifying a few inconsistencies. We'll be in touch." That was all he said. Then he left. My hands pressed into the windowsill until the wood creaked beneath my grip. That wasn't a neighbor. That was escalation. That was Clay's mess trailing through my life like oil on linoleum. I walked away before I could scream. My feet carried me to the hall closet where I kept the photo albums. It was instinct more than intention. Like maybe I could remind myself who I was before this circus swallowed everything. Inside the second album, tucked between Christmases '91 and Dad's workshop rebuild, was an envelope. Yellowed, slipped in like an afterthought, my name written in shaky black ink. I opened it. A photo slid out, creased and bent. My father, standing in front of the house, one hand on the porch beam he built. His eyes were squinting into the light, his smile stubborn but warm. On the back, the ink bled slightly into the paper. "To my Marjorie, this is your home. Don't let anyone take it from you." The words smudged under my thumb. That wasn't just a picture. That was his legacy, his will, even if it was never notarized. The courts wouldn't accept a faded photograph and a pen stroke. But I had. I sank into the chair, frame in hand. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat there, feeling the burn crawl up my throat like a rising tide that had no shore to break on. "They didn't just take my house," I said to the empty room. "They erased my father." The silence didn't comfort me. It pressed down like a second ceiling. Then my phone buzzed. "Delilah. Hey sis, can we chat later? There's a great collab opportunity I want to run by you." I stared at the screen so long it dimmed to black. I didn't respond. I slid the photo into a drawer, locked it, and tossed the key in the bottom of the sugar jar. No one looks there, not unless you want to talk to my lawyer first. The frame was still cracked from the day before, but I couldn't bring myself to fix it. It felt too symbolic, like taping over a broken promise. I laid the photo flat on the table and scanned it with trembling fingers. My dad's writing blurred where water had seeped through years ago, the ink now bleeding into the fibers. "To my Marjorie, this is your home. Don't let anyone take it from you." The scanner hummed, steady and indifferent, like this was just any document. But it wasn't. That was his will, not notarized, not filed, but his last truth, a truth now torn and almost unreadable. My hands hovered over the delete key. I couldn't bring myself to hit it. Instead, I saved the scan under one word: proof. My phone buzzed. The message was short. "You know Delilah needs the space. She has a child. You don't. Maybe let it go." "Mom." The words landed soft, then burned, like stepping barefoot onto concrete that looked cool but held the day's heat. I read it again. The period at the end stung more than any exclamation would have. "You don't." Not "you chose not to." Not "you didn't want one." Just a flat declaration of absence, a final stamp of otherness. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Instead, I read her message aloud in the kitchen, each syllable like glass in my throat. "You know Delilah needs the space. She has a child. You don't. Maybe let it go." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I printed the deed, made 6 copies, labeled the file defense in all caps. Then I scanned every scrap of paper I had, tax forms, utility bills, even Christmas cards addressed solely to me at this property. I called Gideon, straight to voicemail. I'm done watching from the window. I want to know what it takes to prove they stole from me. All of it. Every inch. I hung up. The room felt smaller after that, but my breath didn't catch. My legs didn't shake. Not this time. The sun was starting to lower, painting the living room in copper. I walked out back, stood where the garden used to be before they paved over it. The earth looked tired, compressed, but not dead. The studio loomed beside me like a tumor. "You think I'm going to disappear quietly?" I said to the empty air. "Try again." I listened to it 4 times, maybe 5. The call had recorded by accident, background noise on a voice memo I'd left running during breakfast. I hadn't meant to hear it, but now I couldn't unhear it. "It's already practically hers," my mother's voice crackled. "Once Marjorie cracks, just stay polite." Once Marjorie cracks. My name like a lever, a condition, a weakness. I didn't cry, not this time. I just sat still, one hand on the kitchen table, the other wrapped around my coffee mug like it could keep me from unraveling. 16 years ago, I once called her to tell her about a raise. She said, "Don't gloat, your sister's still finding her path." Today she handed my home away like I was a placeholder. And Delilah? She knew. She always knew. That afternoon, I texted Mom and said I'd made banana bread. "Want coffee?" She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. She came in smiling, wearing her Sunday cardigan, even though it was Wednesday. I poured her coffee. She didn't thank me, just said, "You look tired." I played the audio from my phone, volume just loud enough to cut the room in half. When it finished, I didn't speak. Neither did she. Finally, she said, "You know she has a child. You don't. You're overreacting." "You're not just excusing her," I said. "You're enabling her. You're choosing her, again." She opened her mouth. I stood up. This is the last time I play family with people who don't know how to treat one. I walked her to the door. She didn't argue. Later, I uploaded the file to a new folder labeled Legal Action. Gideon answered on the second ring. "I was about to call you." I didn't wait. "Studio paperwork. Is it under her name?" "No," he said. "It's under Clay's LLC. You're not mentioned anywhere." I closed my eyes. "That's enough for a cease and desist?" He didn't hesitate. "More than enough." I exhaled slowly. My spine, tight from the day, didn't loosen, but something inside me shifted. "File it," I said. "Today." I hung up. Outside the window, Delilah was setting up yoga mats again. Her laugh floated in on the breeze, fake and hollow. She placed a tiny bowl of sage on a fold-out table, like it would cleanse anything but her conscience. "Enjoy your breath work," I whispered. "You'll need it." Gideon's voice was unusually tight. We dug deeper into Clay. I didn't move, just gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles paled. Zoning fraud, Missouri, 2 years ago. He settled out of court, no jail time. But the documents are public. Same company name he used to register the studio on your land. Send me everything. I didn't even blink. The files arrived in a folder labeled Clay_Rudd_fraud, clean, undeniable, false disclosures, asset misrepresentation, multiple properties, same blueprint, different towns. He'd done this before, and now he'd done it to me. I laid the papers out on the table like evidence at a crime scene, and then I placed the LLC registration Delilah had filed under it. No mention of me, no co-owner, just Clay, acting like he owned the earth he paved. At noon, Frank knocked. He didn't come inside, just handed me a sealed envelope and said, "I should have done this earlier." Inside, I found the blueprint, the real one, not the sketch they showed the county. This version had a second story, 2 bathrooms, a separate entrance, and a proposed address. 119B Oak Ridge Lane, a new house, on my land, with my name nowhere on it. "This was the version Clay approved," Frank said. "The other one was for show." "Why now?" He looked away. "Because it's not just space they're stealing, it's ownership." I didn't thank him. I didn't need to. I walked straight to the addition and stood at the new back door, the one that never should have existed. Clay was already outside, sipping coffee like this was just another Saturday. "You're trespassing on my deck," he said, grinning. I handed him the file. Case summary, blueprint, Missouri records. "I know who you are," I said. "And now, so will the board." The grin cracked. "You wouldn't." "Try me." I didn't wait for a comeback. Delilah watched from the upstairs window. I saw her through the glass, still, silent, maybe for the first time. As I walked back toward the house, my heels struck the pavement with a sound that didn't echo. It pronounced. They drew their dream on my land, but I just found the eraser. The email came just after sunrise. From Gideon, a PDF attachment titled Property Filing, Oak Ridge Lane. I didn't need to open it to know what it was, but I did anyway. There it was, in bold type. Sub-property registration approved, 119B Oak Ridge Lane. Clay had filed it 6 weeks ago. No mention of me. My house, the home I'd maintained alone for 15 years, was now legally split in two. The main house, 119A. The new addition, 119B. As if I were a landlord renting to strangers. As if I were the guest. I sat in the silence, the paper glowing on my screen like a bruise. My jaw locked. My knuckles whitened. I whispered it to myself. They were building a future without me in it. I didn't even get time to finish my coffee before the next hit landed. The bank. Hi, this is Denise from Central Trust. We just wanted to confirm the cosigner authorization on the Delilah Wellness Group account. I frowned. What cosigner? The one we processed 2 months ago, Marjorie Lane. That's you, right? My pulse froze. I never signed anything. That's strange. The system shows both owners approved a grant-funded deposit, and that account was also used to verify proof of property access for local permits. I didn't speak. I just ended the call. I stood in the middle of my living room and stared at the ceiling fan. Spinning. Pointless. Like all the breath I'd wasted asking for respect. Enough. By noon, I was walking into the Boonville courthouse with a folder under my arm, Gideon by my side. We filed a petition for fraud, identity misuse, and unlawful partition of property. Gideon's voice was steady. Mine was sharper than I intended. I didn't apologize for it. We submitted blueprints, bank records, emails, the Missouri zoning file, everything. I signed the final page without blinking. Clay had played the long game. I was just getting started. You wanted to expand, I said out loud, the words catching the ear of a nearby clerk. Now you'll see how far I can go. That night, I knocked on the guesthouse door. Delilah answered in a satin robe, eyes still heavy with last night's wine or denial. I couldn't tell. She tried to smile. Hey, want to? Your lease? I said. Expired. Your luck? Running out? Your lies? Counted. I turned before she could speak. By the time I reached the porch, my phone buzzed. Gideon. Court date confirmed, Friday. I smiled, sharp and certain. Finally. The courthouse smelled like old paper and ammonia. I sat in the second row, not trusting the back, not needing the front. Clay and Delilah were across from me, both dressed like the innocent. She wore beige, hair straightened. He wore a tie he probably pulled from the same drawer as his lies. Gideon's briefcase clicked open. He moved like a scalpel, calm, deliberate. When he laid out the documents, the fraudulent permits, the fake subaddress, the forged signature, the judge didn't blink, but his pen moved. That's all I needed. Delilah didn't look at me. Clay barely looked up. The ruling came without ceremony. Full property reverts to Marjorie Lane. The 119B address is voided. The structure is to be vacated and dismantled within 14 days. Clay Rudd's real estate license is hereby suspended pending further review. Delilah Knox is formally reprimanded for misuse of legal identity and false representation in grant applications. No applause, just the sound of a gavel. Back home, the house was too quiet. I unlocked the door and exhaled into silence. My phone buzzed. Central Trust, $12,000 disbursed from account ending in 4,431 under lien signed by Marjorie Lane. I didn't curse. I didn't drop the phone. I just stared. Gideon answered on the first ring. Clay pulled the loan weeks ago. It was processed right before you filed. I didn't sign anything. I know. You won't be held financially liable, but reversing it will take time. I nodded, dry, detached. Even when they lose, I said, they still cost me. The next morning, I stood in the backyard. The studio was already gutted, the air thick with insulation dust and cold resolve. I dug into the dirt with bare hands and planted lavender. 6 rows, even spacing. The way Dad taught me. I wiped my palms on my jeans and went inside. I unpacked the old photo, the one of him smiling on the porch, and took it to the frame shop. It came back sealed in glass, the signature almost unreadable but still there. I hung it in the office right above the deed. Delilah sent a letter. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't much of anything, just a single sentence. I didn't know how to stop him. I didn't write back. That evening, I walked the property, fence to fence. My jacket pulled tight, the wind tugging at the sleeves like a goodbye. Forgiveness is a gift, I whispered. Closure is a choice. I picked the one I could live with. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who share your last name. And yet the lesson isn't always to fight back with fists. It's to fight back with truth, with paper, with presence. I didn't win because I screamed the loudest. I won because I stood my ground, even when silence would have been easier. If you're watching this and you're facing betrayal, gaslighting, or feeling like no one sees what you're going through, hear me. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And you don't owe anyone your peace if they've made it their playground. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to reclaim something that was taken from you? Your voice, your home, your name? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story touched you, or tell me what part hit the hardest. And hey, tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this voice is reaching. If you didn't like the video, I'd still love to know why. Was it the story? The tone? The ending? Let's talk. And if you did feel something, if it cracked something open or just made you pause, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell. There's more where this came from, and I promise every story here will meet you where you are and walk with you forward.